I was going to film outside today and maybe go for a walk, but honestly, it's just way too windy to do that. So instead, I'm sitting in my car, and I think this is a great place to do my podcast while I'm up north working, just because my car is my safe place. I feel so comfortable in here. I feel like I could really be myself and just talk how I want to. And really, the only place I feel that way that is not my car is when I'm out in nature. And like that was the whole reason I wanted to go for a walk today, to spend some time outdoors when I'm up here because, if I'm being honest, there's not much nature up here like I am usually used to back home. Like when you play a Minecraft Flat World, that's kind of what it feels like up north here. There are trees, there is some nature, but it's not the same as back home. Like, I'm the type of person that likes the mountains, that likes the running water, the waterfalls, and all of that, and like that atmosphere and that the smell of just being outside. Like, I love that. I love nature, and the fact that I'm so far away from my favorite place in the world is tough. It's tough living up here. It's tough working up here right now because back home is where I belong. I belong outdoors. I belong in nature and just, I could really spend all day outside in the woods, in the forest, just because I feel like I'm home. And I don't know where this started. Maybe in my childhood, I did love the outdoors when I was a kid, and I remember like fond memories of my dad taking me to this place called Lynn Canyon, and that was in Vancouver, where I used to live in the greater Vancouver area. And like Lynn Canyon, like I just prayed we would go there all the time because I love that place and I love that place so much. And some of my fondest memories of my dad were at Lynn Canyon and going on hikes with him. There's the waterfalls, it's a long hike, it's up mountains, it's down mountains, and there's even a suspension bridge. And there's something about suspension bridges that I just love so much, the way they sway a little bit. It's even a little scary when you're looking down, but as I got older, going on a suspension bridge is just like the most freeing feeling ever. You look down and you're like, there is so much to this world that, we don't really personally know about. There's so much to nature that we can explore, and just that depth of perception looking down over the bridge is just, it fills me with so much wonder and so much life that, there's a world out there that I want to explore. There's a world out there that I want to experience. And unfortunately, but kind of fortunately right now, I can't have that. And I say it kind of fortunately because I'm still working on myself. I'm still building myself every single day. And, the thought of the unknown, the thought of, one day going out there into the world, just, it fills me with so much hope. Hope that I can get there one day. And that's why I started this podcast, to hopefully grow it really big to the point that I could do this full time. I could talk full time and I could yap full time and enjoy, the fruits of my labor in terms of just getting out into nature, spending all my time outdoors and with my loved ones and everything in between. And I don't get that up here. I am living with my uncle, but you know, if I'm being honest, there we have problems, in my opinion, between us. We're not compatible living together, and I don't want to really get too much into the details, but I don't feel like I'm home. So I'm excited to move back. I'm excited to continue my life back home and continue working on this podcast daily. And, it kind of scares me. It scares me because, what if I put in all this effort and all this work and I don't get there? That's always a running feeling and thought in my mind. And it's scary. It's scary, stepping into the unknown, but at the same time, it's also exciting because it's full of everything that isn't right now. And, maybe one day I will get there. And, I'll look back on a day like today and I'll look back on the second podcast here and be like, you know what? No, you went really far. And, if only you knew just how amazing things would be. And that's just kind of what I imagine. about the future and my life in the future is like there's just going to be a day that comes and it's going to feel like I moved mountains. It's going to feel like I really, did everything I said I was going to do. And that's really at the end of the day what I hope I can do is everything I say I'm going to do. My biggest thing in life, my value in life, and the thing that I strive for and really want most in life is the ability to do whatever I want whenever I want. I love freedom. I love the ability to choose what I want to do in the day. And, you know, this idea of doing a podcast and really having my own business in a sense and, you know, really fulfilling those dreams of mine just makes me so happy that and like so proud of, how far I have come even in the last year because last year I was struggling. I was struggling with finding purpose. I was struggling with finding myself. And honestly, I didn't know what I was doing. And up until this point, I guess I didn't really know what I was doing. But that's kind of the beauty of life is, you just try things out and see what works for you and see what doesn't and discard the things that don't and, work towards the things that do. And there's something about this podcast, the Authenticity Project, that just really fills me with so much peace because I just feel like I'm right where I need to be right now. I feel like I'm really stepping into my power, stepping into the person that I wanted to become from the very beginning. The person that, you know, doesn't have it all figured out, but knows where he's going. And I feel like I know where I'm going right now. There is this quote by Earl Nightingale, and I don't exactly know it verbatim word for word, but it was something along the lines of, when a person knows where they're going, they have a direction. And when they have a direction, it's basically a map. If you're driving a boat and you don't have a map of where you're going, you don't know where you're going, you don't have a destination, you don't know the path, then you're not going to go anywhere. You're going to end up either, sinking, crashing, or whatever it is. You're going to stay stagnant. You're not really going to go where you need to go. But when you have a map and you have a destination in mind, you have a place to move forward. You have a place to work towards, a thing to work towards. That was kind of really botched, and I'm really bad with analogies, as you can tell. But we're gonna keep going, okay? And if any of that even resonated in any sort of way, like that's cool because honestly, it was a little confusing there. But with that being said, I have something to work towards. And the last time I felt this way was when I started my social media account at 0 followers Whiffin Thoughts, and my goal was 100,000. And when I got there, I took a break because I didn't have another goal in mind. But now I do. Now I know what I want. I know what I'm working towards, and I don't know what's going to happen along the journey, but I'm going to try my best every day. And hopefully I could push a podcast out every day. Like I'm going to try my best to. And I just don't like to, give definite answers all the time because, sometimes things change, but I want to try my best. And I hope everyone who is watching this video, if you're watching this video, I hope you really enjoy this because this is the beginning of something big. And I just feel that way because of how excited I am to do this. And at the end of the day, I think that's what matters most. I think what matters most is, you know, what you're doing, if it's a job, a career, if you're happy doing it, then that's what matters most because if you aren't doing something you're happy with, then why are you even doing it in the first place? And I know maybe the first answer is money, and I get that. And that is the situation I am in right now. And, it is easier said than done. But if you could still have that understanding that, the place you're in right now might not be the place you want to be, then at least you have that knowledge to move forward with and, hopefully find something that actually does suit you and your needs. And I think the best place to start looking for those things that really fulfill you is by looking within yourself and, maybe even taking account of your past and your present and, you know, looking at the things that you have done and the things you are doing. And, maybe there's something there that you realize fills you with joy and makes you happy. And maybe there's something you could do with that that can be a career one day, even if it starts as a side hustle like what I'm doing right now with this podcast. You got to start somewhere. And, you know, if you don't start, nothing's going to change. You know, nothing changes if nothing changes. You got to you got to try new things, and you got to, you know, be consistent with your actions, because, just doing something once is not going to bring you the results you want. It's going to take time, it's going to take effort, it's going to take work. It's not always easy, and there's going to be times where you doubt yourself. There's going to be times maybe where people judge you or you judge yourself, and you got to push through that. You got to push through those tough times and still move forward with, maybe not a smile on your face, but with a dream. You got to move forward with hope that one day it will work out. And the crazy part about that is that you never know if it is going to work out. But you're almost in this little bit of delusion that it will. And I think that's the best place to be. I think it's okay and it's great to be a little delusional sometimes when it comes to dreams and desires, because, you know, that delusion kind of propels you forward in a sense. It gives you a little motivation, and, along with that discipline that you're hopefully instilling in yourself along the way, like, you'll get there. And I personally believe you will get there, because I've had those times in my life where I doubted myself, people doubted me, but I proved them wrong. I proved myself wrong, and I did everything I said I was going to do, and it turned out better than I could have ever expected. And it usually does when things work out. Things usually turn out better than you ever could expect them to. And that's just something I've kind of held on to, all those times that, my dreams came true in the past. I just held on to that, belief that things do work out when you really try your best. If you really give it 100% of yourself, 110%, then things will work out. It's just a matter of time. And really, the only times things don't work out are when you give up. Or, you could fail 100 times, but the moment you give up and you stop chasing after that desire and that dream of yours, things stop working because you gave up. But if you keep moving forward, you're going to hit diamonds. You're going to strike diamonds one day. You really are. And just talking about all of this is so fulfilling. You know, if you're in a place right now where maybe you don't feel fulfilled, maybe you feel like there's a lot you need to discover about yourself, then now is the best time to do that. Put down the distractions, put down the phone, put down the music, whatever it is that is keeping you occupied right now. Just put it all down and spend some time alone with yourself, with your thoughts, and, maybe even meditate. Close your eyes and just listen to those thoughts. Listen to what they're saying, and, maybe you'll learn something from that. Or maybe those thoughts you hear, you learn from those, and they take you deeper into other thoughts and other things about your life that, were under the surface. There's a whole world to be discovered inside of yourself. There's your consciousness and your unconsciousness. And, if you could tap into that unconscious part of yourself, that subconscious, then maybe you could really figure out who you are. That's what authenticity is all about. It's all about expressing who you are. And if you don't know who you are, then you can't be authentic. And, I think being authentic is the best thing you can do for yourself. I really do. Because when you are truly yourself, when you are really being yourself to the most fullest extent that you can, then you shine. You really do. You shine as a person, and people, they really see that energy. They really see who you are. They see the real you. And you're going to attract people, you're going to attract situations and everything in between when you are truly being yourself. And like the type of people that you are going to attract, the type of situations are going to be the situations that are so aligned with who you are, because you're not being anyone else. You're not trying to be someone else. You're just trying to be yourself. You're just being yourself. That's really what it boils down to. That's really what authenticity boils down to, is just you being yourself. And, despite what other people may think, you don't really care, because you're being yourself and you're happy with who you are. And when you could find that happiness within and, stick with those things that make you happy, then I think it really transforms your life. And I could say that from personal experience. In moments like these where I'm filming this video, this podcast, I really feel content. I really feel peaceful and happy. Initially I was scared to film because I didn't know if, you know, I would forget what to say, or, try too hard and like just stop talking, but when you get me talking or when I just start talking, it's so hard for me to stop. So I just keep talking. And that's what I love about my videos. I don't have a script. I'm not reading off of anything. I'm taking words, I'm taking feelings, and I'm taking like thoughts from my mind, from how I feel, and I'm expressing that outward. And it's kind of like my alchemy. I alchemize my emotions, my feelings, my thoughts into this podcast and into something special because it's kind of like a glimpse into my life. If you're listening to this right now or you're watching this video, this podcast right now, you're getting a glimpse into my life, into the early stages of my life, I'd like to say, because I'm only 22 years old. I'm not even 23 yet. There's another 8 months before that happens, but you know, I think I've learned a lot so far in these 22 years of my life. I feel like, even to the point I don't relate to a lot of people my age because maybe it's just my path is different and I think everyone's path is different to an extent, but there's just something else there that I am trying to find. I haven't found, you know, my tribe, like my whole tribe. I have my family, I have a few friends and my girlfriend, but I think there's more people out there that I'm meant to meet and, become really good friends with, but only time will tell. And, I know I have been getting, all over the place with my words and with my conversations, but that's just kind of how my thoughts work is they're all over the place. I'm up in the clouds and then I'm on the ground and then I'm kind of a little bit everywhere. So bear with me in these podcasts because you know, you're getting a glimpse into my mind. You're getting a glimpse into how my brain works. I do overthink, but you know, people say overthinking is bad, but it's only bad in my opinion if you think of it as a bad thing. I think it's okay to overthink as long as you aren't attaching so much emotion and so much, meaning to that overthinking. You could overthink all the time, but it doesn't have to affect you like it might affect you. And that's something I had to learn. I had to learn that, it's okay if I overthink, and I'm going to accept that. I'm going to embrace that. And, I'm going to allow myself to feel those ways if I feel a certain type of way. And, when I started doing that, my overthinking did settle. It did kind of level out. And, I feel like I'm at peace with my mind most of the time. I've learned to understand my mind and how it works because it is running 24/7 and I'm always thinking, but I've learned to embrace that. And I guess with that being said, with all this whole conversation I've had with myself and with you, I think this is a great point to end episode 2 of the Authenticity Project. And if you really stuck it through this long and you've listened to me ramble and yap and, kind of go all over the place, you're a real one. You really are. And I wish you a wonderful day, a wonderful evening, whatever time it is for you, I wish you a wonderful time because sometimes all we need is a little recognition, and I get that. And if you're struggling right now or you want to feel a little notice, just know that I notice you. I get you because I've been in situations that you've been in before, and I've probably been in the situation you're in right now to some extent. And I just want you to know that there are greater times ahead. There are better, days. But, sometimes we do got to face these bad days, and sometimes we have bad days because, I think they really make us appreciate the good days even more. You can't have one without the other. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to differentiate between the two. So, soak it all in. Try your best to stay afloat and continue moving forward. And if you do continue moving forward, you're going to really see why it was worth it in the first place.